Johannena,
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 Oh, welcome in, everyone.
Johannena.
Welcome in around what we call the virtual fireside, where we are circling together. And through the circling and through our presence, through our conversations, we are evoking that which is ready to speak with each of us uniquely. And we put great importance in bringing this intention in that we are circling together, even in this virtual circle, even though it looks like Hollywood squares. You're coming in here as a circle. And what we are doing here with this is we are taking that power back, where the colonized mind or colonized ways is to really take, there's a leader out there out front, there's a facilitator out front. But what we're doing is when we come back into the circle, we are all equal as we come in. There's no one above, there's no one below. And therefore, we all have something of equal value to contribute. And we all have something to learn. We all are learning. We are all growing. We are all healing. So we can come into this space in a humble way. So thank you for taking this time to come in with me and join me in the circle where we lean into these mysteries. Now, we always begin these council fires with a kind of offering. Now, normally we're doing this outside amongst the elements where the fire is alive and there's drumming and there's movement, there's storytelling, there's song. And so our whole being becomes engaged in the experience. So we really evoke that which is wanting to find a space inside of us, take up residency, speak with us. Now, the way we do this online through these virtual council fires is we do it through the beauty making of our words. And so I'm going to share a kind of incantation that's inspired by a Haida hymn from the people in the British Columbia territory. And so as we lean into this, I want to invite you to really come into your heart with this and listen from your heart and feel into the imagery that these words may conjure within you. What hidden invitations may be in them? Where do you find yourself in these words? So take a moment and close your eyes and take in a deep inhalation. And as you exhale, relax the whole body. Allow yourself to fully arrive. Come into that liminal space where that otherness can actually speak with you. And hear these words. Quiet now. Your grandmother's mother is inviting you in. Your grandmother's mother is inviting you in. Here as the full belly moon shimmers on lake waters. She sings the womb songs as she beats her drum and speaks the stories passed down from her mother and her mother before her. Even now, you are remembering. Spell cast enchantments are breaking now. Yes, you are remembering. Oh. Just feel into those words. Feel into the imagery. I've been very blessed in my life where I am connected with elders and wisdom keepers of many traditions, connected to many different lands. And there's a common language I'm hearing in these conversations where The elders are sharing, we are now in a time of remembering. We are in a time of remembering. There's a felt sense that our ancestors, our grandmothers, mothers, our grandfathers, fathers are inviting us back in because we are finally in a time period where we can lean in to these ancestral wisdoms that have been lost to us for a long time. And what my teachers have shared with me is that, these teachings, or I call these rememberings, you could say these teachings, they don't belong to any particular people, but rather they belong of the earth. And this is why across the world, amongst diverse people who've never even knew each other existed, share the same teachings, but they are dressed in their own beautiful colors, their beautiful robes of their own traditions, expressed through their own unique language of those lands. There's no coincidence that we speak of the very sacred hoop, of the aliveness in nature, of these ways of listening. And with this remembering, there's something very beautiful that happened here with the authoring of this Beyond Shamanism, because we had just over 200 people respond to this event. We had over 60 people actually enroll to be here this evening. And this is very exciting. And what this indicates is that as a people, we are ripe. We are spiritually ripe for restoring these more authentic depths. It means as a people, we are ready to now receive. As a people, we are ready to remember. And that's exciting. That's very exciting. It's been a long time coming. See, my teachers in India, they were some of the last of their lineage that had been passed down through the oral tradition for thousands of years. And when I had found out they were some of the last of their lineage, I asked, wow, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with all this knowledge, all that devotion, all that discipline, all these teachings? Are they just going to be lost to the world? And they said, no. They said, no. They said they merely go back into the earth where they wait for a people who are ready to receive them anew for their times. And they shared this is how this knowledge came to them and how it came to their teachers before them. Now, here's one of those hidden teachings right here. One of the weaves that we can lean into the deeper layers. And that is, they didn't pass on information. These old world ways, they didn't pass on information. What they did was they passed on a kind of sacred etiquette. They passed on a way for them to come into their own knowing, or through to direct relationship with the elementals in nature and with the sacred. They had that sense of remembering and evoking that which was already a part of them. Feel into that. Feel into the importance of what that means. There is such a beauty and a sense of coming home when you recognize these teachings, these remembering scenes are already inside of us and they're wanting to speak with us, that they are readily available here amongst nature. My teachers of India, these beautiful Babas, they lived outdoors amongst the elements nearly every day of the year. And they shared that what they said, they called these the original understandings. The Hopi in the Dene. I've heard them call these the original instructions given to us by Creator. And the Aborigine call these the original song lines. The Old Norse call these the original seeds. And so they're here within us because we are all part of the earth. As Ben, who was an Hopi elder, mentor in my life, I met down in Page, Arizona. He shared we are all indigenous of earth. The waters in these bodies, the flesh of these bodies come from the waters of the earth, come from the flesh of the plants, of the animals, who come from that of the stars and the plants in return. And so what we're doing here is making a very profound shift between our modern approach of consuming information, of completing certifications and programs in order to collect information and rise up above. And instead, we are coming into this old world way where we are entering relationship with what we seek, with what is wanting to speak to us from within. What we're leaning into here tonight is these old world perspectives. And when I say old world, I want to be clear. I don't mean old teachings that were from the far away back in time, but old world referring to these original ways of an intact people who live yet as an extension of the land, because people are yet living these ways in India, in Thailand, in Tibet, in Africa, amongst our indigenous people here in the States and so forth. These old world ways could be better described as these original ways. And so tonight we're leaning into these perspectives and this greater potential that they have to offer. And see, what we're asking here is, how can we lean in as our ancestors leaned in? How can we listen as our ancestors listened? How can we engage, be in relationship as our ancestors once listened? And in this, and what you're already feeling into is we're discerning these key modern colonized mindsets that are blocking people today, blocking them from accessing these depths. It's our psychology. They're blocking us from accessing our abilities to connect, to harness our gifts, to have that deeper connection. It's all just in our psychology. See, we have been spell cast. Enchantments have been made that lock us in this self-defeating loop of disconnection and disempowerment. So we want to break enchantments. And in just a moment, we're going to feel into a greater picture beyond our concept of shamanism and how shamanism is in fact limiting us and how we're moving into this work, and how we may want to expand just beyond this. Before we go any further, I want to give both a kind of warning and an invitation. What you're experiencing here is a different kind of sharing, and it's called a weaving. I'm not here to pass on information, but rather through stories, through this ancestral speech, we are helping to craft a space for you to have more of a felt experience of what's inside your bone memory, in your blood memory, that is wanting to speak with you. We don't want to just merely pass on information and bullet points. We want to really offer this so that what is wanting to speak with you can find that space inside of you and take up residency. So it requires a different kind of listening. It requires a way of listening with a sense of curiosity, with learning to ask the questions you haven't yet thought to ask, to feel into what are some of these deeper layers wanting to speak. See, one of our primary blocks is how unknowingly our colonized mind looks for bullet points. It looks for destinations. It looks for what it can take. It's a colonized mind. It's a very transactional mind. What am I getting from this? How am I going to use this? The old world way is a relational mindset. It shares the answers you seek can't be given to you. The elders share, don't seek answers. Seek the questions you haven't yet thought to ask. And they share that these questions, they're stalking you. They're wanting to find you. They want to offer up something greater than what you could have asked for yourself. See, there's an understanding that our path is alive. These teachings are alive, that they're even sentient and self-conscious. And the old world way is actually approaching the teachings that they are alive and they are these own respected beings that hold that embodied sense of awareness. The mythic traditions around the world, from the great Taoists to the Aborigine, to my Babas, the Shiva traditions and lineages, they share that we're in a kind of hologram, which they call the dreaming, and that we're each uniquely being dreamt into the world. And that dreaming, each of our dreaming, how we're being dreamt into the world, the story that's being lived through us, it's alive, it's intelligent, and we can speak with it. We can be in conversation with it. And it's leaving crumbs for us to follow, to trail its scent as it leads us into the deeper layers of our life, the deeper meanings. And so these teachings are wanting you to find them, are wanting to take up residency within you and be of you. Okay. So here's the thing, something is inviting you in. And to gain entrance is to restore a kind of curiosity, a willingness to trail the scent hidden within the dreaming, the synchronicities. See, in our modern world, we tend to want to consume information. And as we consume information, we build up a kind of momentum in life. And the more velocity that we build up, the narrower our sight becomes. We get this tunnel vision. And therefore, things wanting to speak with us, we can't really see, and we're missing out on all the connections and availability, the flow and the abundance that's readily available for us. See, the elders are sharing that, it's just what's on the periphery of our awareness that's trying to probe us into the deeper meanings of our life. But to be aware of that is to slow down, to shift from consuming to listening, to being open and receptive to receive and be stewarded instead of trying to blaze a trail, to be the hollow bone through which the dreaming sings through you. Yeah. So what we're leaning into here, and it's a really special shift if you make this, and perhaps you could feel it, we're making the shift from collecting stories about the earth, about the great mystery. And we're shifting to where we're learning directly from the earth, directly from the mystery. And that's an important shift, learning from going about something to learning from something. When we learn from, we enter a kind of relationship. There's a connection, there's an exchange that's occurring. The colonized mind is all about learning about. And when we learn about, it creates distance. That's the object. This is me. I'm learning about this thing. And so right there, it creates separation. It creates disconnection. And that kind of colonized psychology of learning about things is what keeps us disconnected. It's that self-defeating loop that continually disempowers us, because the power is in the connection. It's in the relationship, because then it becomes of us versus something that we have. In our modern world, we find that we use information as a kind of haviness. When we have information, we have power. If we have so much information or certain kind of information, we can then take on a certain role, come into a certain title. And that, again, is separation. But through this more original ways, when we come into relationship, something occurs inside of you. It awakens, it becomes of you, then you speak from a deeper place. And it's like when you hear that in my own words, in my own sharing, where are these words coming from? They're not coming from a book. So in just a moment, we're going to lean into what is shamanism? Why is it limited? How can we go beyond our concept of shamanism? And why is it important we do so? But first, I want to introduce myself if you're new to me. My name is Chi Vitokoa, which roughly translates as little goat crow. And I'm going to share why I go by little goat crow so you understand. And it's very relevant to what we're leaning into here. I was given this name 3 times in 3 different countries, in Mexico and India. And then I was officially initiated with the Puyallup tribe here in the Pacific Northwest during one of the veteran sweats. And when you're given a name in this way, it's not about identity. I would have not have chosen my name as Little Goat, but it's a name that's gifted to you. And what it represents is it reflects the gifts or the medicine that I carry, or what my sacred duty in this life is to live out. But it also reflects my limitations, my shortcomings, so that I can respect and honor them both equally. And between recognizing my gifts, my path, my duty, and my limitations, between them, that helps to frame and outline the path that I have to walk. So it helps to anchor me on my path, give me that clarity, what to lean in, as well as what I can let go of. It's a way of humbling me down to become a hollow bone through which that dreaming can dream through me, to give the medicine that is meant to be offered through here. And so my name is Chivito Ko, little goat crow. That's the rough translation. It actually has a much deeper meaning. And that deeper meaning is just for me. It's just for me. And so as Chivito Ko, I help facilitate Tree of Totems with an incredible group of souls, these inspired elders of different traditions and different backgrounds, these beautiful people who are helping to facilitate, who they've so courageously been willing to go down into their own shadows, harvest their own medicine, bloom into consistently cultivating themselves. And together we are restoring these original ways of vision quest, of doing wilderness rites of passage, of going out and learning how to learn from the land, from the plants, that restores us in a more kind of indigenous way of being of the land, of being of the greater belonging that we are part of. And if you are curious, you can just go to our website at treeoftotems.com or my author site at chivitokoa.com. Right. So now let us address shamanism. Right. See, today, shamanism has become this umbrella term for any spiritual practice, basically, that we can't fit into any other box. And people use it to refer to animism, to indigenous cultures or ways. Our New Age communities attach shamanism to Reiki, sound healing, plant medicine. Now, each of these has their own value. They have their own place. They're very important to have, but none of them are specifically related to shamanism. See, traditionally, a shaman comes from the Mongolian region, which may have referred to traditionally as a kind of Buddhist tantrika. But it's nearly defined as someone who goes into a trance and negotiates or battles with spirits on behalf of a person, a family, or a community. And to become a shaman was quite the ordeal. when the spirits had to choose you. And you go through this intense kind of initiation process where you actually die and then you are revived. So they enter the other world and then they return with the blessings of their ancestors, or they don't return. So it's a pretty intense threshold to cross. And if we are to be honest, in our modern society, many people aren't willing to really do these old world kind of initiations, go through the intensity and the pain that evokes those kinds of powers. Now, the good thing is that there are so many other traditions and ways of connecting that don't require such austerities and intensities. And we don't need to become these spiritually tortured individuals that fulfill these very specific roles. Because you can see a shaman fulfills a very specific and narrowly defined role. See, a good analogy is the difference between an acupuncturist and a foot reflexology practitioner. See, they're both valued, they both have their place, but the reflexologist is more limited and focused in a very particular area, while the acupuncturist has a far greater scope to draw from. So we don't need to limit ourselves by wanting to box ourselves into the concept of shamanism. Now, from a traditional perspective, we can see how shamans are very limited to that particular role, and their focus scope of knowledge is there in that limited capacity. But what we're leaning into here is that there is these original ways, these old world ways across cultures and traditions around the world that speak into these deeper relationships that have the ability to accentuate the gifts that you are cultivating inside of yourself. And hence will empower you to further bloom into your unique calling, into your unique medicine, whether it's sound healing or energy healing or helping guide people through dark descents. So we have these traditions we can draw from to help probe and activate our own memory. See, the Old Norse call these the Sedirs. In Mexico, they're called the Brujeria. Central America, they're called the Curandera. They're called the Curadeche in Australia. And when you tap into a lineage that has been intact and you honor the right name, there's a certain kind of power there. It's a incredible thing to know your lineage. But here's something very important to recognize. Few people have this knowledge of very few people have this knowledge. Very few people have this connection to their lineage. See, here's another block. And this is really important. And this block is what's weakening our gifts and it's blocking us from the depths that are available. We've all been cut off from our ancestral roots. We no longer have access to the songs and the stories and the rituals of our people. And if we trail back our ancestry far enough, we come to a people who lived as a part of a land and knew their stories. But as a modern people, we're now born into the world as spiritual orphans. So there's very few people who they know their heritage, they know their people, their stories. And if you are one that does, then you're very lucky. And even those who are connected to a lineage or a part of it, there is still a wound that is there. We carry that wound. And it's important to acknowledge this wound. As Patrick Mingo Elder, my mentor, He shares, we are all members of the Scar clan. We are all members of the Scar clan. Inside each of us, there is what's called our bone memory. And in our bone memory is felt a remembrance of the wound of separation, of that fear during those times, of the persecution that occurred from the brutality of religious oppression. But also in our bone memory is the remembrance of our original knowing, of the original instructions, of the original understandings, of our original relationship, of our original belonging. And so now, for the first time in 1,000 years, we are able to return back to our roots and begin to remember. If you look back just over the last 10, 20 years, you can see how much has shifted. Where before there was protest against yoga, saying you can't be a Christian and do yoga. There was protest against Harry Potter, making fun of anything spiritual and cultivated practice that didn't fit into a box of a religion. But now you can see how powerful this remembrance has come, that there are so many different types of meditation practices, so many different types of yoga, so many things. People are blooming. And we owe this to all the people who've come before us, who've been persecuted. Those who yet carried on these remembrances and these stories in whatever capacity they can, so that we can now be here. This is their gift to us, that we can now do it. And so our gift is in honoring all that has happened, the persecutions, the genocides for the last thousands of years. And it's a very important time that we now come into this time of remembering, and we carry this wound with us now as a source of power. This is our great activism. This is our way of engaging in this ancestral healing. So what we're doing here is we're stirring the remembrances yet held in our bone memory. And so this is a healing process. And that means to become comfortable with grief and know how to grieve in a way that we return the beauty to that grief. The Celts have an old word that means old hurt. It's the kind of hurt no Celt would want to be without, for it means they have been touched by life. Something has moved them. And in other cultures, unless you held that grief in a good way, you weren't able to hold an important role in their society. So a part of what we're leaning into is we're moving away from the colonized mind that's saying we're supposed to ascend above it all. And we're saying, no, we want to come back into relatedness, for our power comes from our connection to our relationship with the sacred, with our grief, with those who've come before us, that our power comes from them, from the earth, exactly. So what's forgotten in our modernization through colonization is what it is to be in relationship with place. The intimacy of not just knowing the land, but to be known by it. To be known by it, that it speaks to you, shares its stories and songs that hold these unteachable learnings and become known only through relationship. All that we seek isn't in books. It's right here in the earth. It's in greeting the God who dresses the dawn. As my teacher shared, there's some teachings that will only ever be known to you in the mountain, to you and the goddess that is dressing the dawn. By you walking out onto those paths, you encounter the invisible paths that bring you to what we call these unteachable learnings. And then they become your own, of you. So what we're speaking into here is how to access these deeper layers available to you. And instead, we move away from seeking information, and we instead come into entering into relationship through personal experience. And these powers in nature, the powers in the great mystery, they will find you. And you will find that you don't have to push your path, but instead you become receptive to receive. So our ancestors are inviting us in. Quiet now. Your grandmother's mother is inviting you in. Here as the full belly moon shimmers on lake waters. She sings the womb songs as she speaks the stories passed down from her mother and her mother before her. Even now you are remembering. Spell cast enchantments are breaking. Yes, you are remembering. So we are entering that time of remembering. And so we're seeing the path isn't one of ascension, but it's one of descension. The clinic of the northern people, they have what they call the moon palace. And the moon palace is where all the people want to go. And our modern people, they all want to be up in the moon palace, and they look down onto the earth and they see the happenings going on down here. They're not touched by it. And their elders share descend down. It's a three-day journey down back into the earth. And it's a descent into relatedness. Today, our world is so focused on trying to ascend. At one point, it's like Icarus, who flies too close to the sun. Eventually, we're going to fall back down into that deep well of grief and feeling that actually initiates us back into our true self. Saying that I love is, can you become broken enough to be fully human? It's to where brokenness, the light comes in, wisdom comes in, spirit comes in. But here's the good news is this is an important aspect because so many of us get caught up in the sense of knowing our lineage. What ancestry are we? What tradition am I a part of? And so we're trying on all these different traditions like they're different pairs of clothes, different shoes. And that's how we help to evoke these particular remembrances that are wanting to speak with us. So it's a good thing to lean into different traditions, but we find many get attached to this concept I need to be a part of a lineage, or maybe, and if I'm not, then what I'm sharing isn't authentic. And so the good news is we don't necessarily need to identify with any particular lineage or tradition. In fact, we may want to avoid any institutional lineage that is caught up on the sense of identity. And instead, what we want to do is get rid of that drama and that noise. See, that's just a trap, that colonized trap of identifying. Instead of just becoming the hollow bone which speaks through us. And instead, what we want to do is recognize what all these lineages are here to do. All of these practices are merely to help us cultivate ourselves to be able to be receptive to the teachings that are universal, that are in the land right where we are, that we can connect with the gods and the spirits, with the land, with where we are. How can we merely just be in good relationship and receive the gifts that they have to offer? Because it becomes of you, now there's authenticity versus the regurgitation or the translation of something you learned and says, well, now this is mine. We don't need to do that. And if you are helping to facilitate and guide others, instead of passing on information, you ask, how do you craft the space, craft the experience for them to come into their own knowing? Still into these words. It's called trailing the original seeds. beneath the raven feathers of shamanism and the oak bark of the Druids, beneath the Mongolian steppe and the four great Taoist mountains, beneath the rainbow skin of the Aborigine. Woven within, carried on the breath of Haida hymns sung. There is a seed point. There is a seed point from which all sacred rituals, knowledge, and awareness sprout from. There's a common taproot drinking from the river beneath the river, where the earth dreams the world into being with the help of Spider Woman weaving at her loom. The myth tellers call this earth speech. The Dene and Hopi call these the original instructions given to us by Creator. My Babas, the original understandings, the Aborigine, the original song lines. And each tradition has dressed them within the robes of their colorful culture. And the path to tapping into the river beneath the river are much the same. It's a way of listening to the earth dreaming, way of attuning to the subtle conversations and relationships in nature, being silent, a hollow bone, and observing, regarding all of nature, animals, the weather, the plants as our teachers. So the ancestors share, don't mimic our traditions, seek what we sought, relationship with the subtle. In doing so, you don't acquire information. Instead, you remember your own songline connected to the taproots, to the river beneath the river, and hence it becomes your own. In other words, this isn't information you acquire, it is wisdom you become. And it comes through direct relationship. So we, right here, what we've been doing in this council fires, what we call that weaving, the weaving of words that hold power, the weaving of stories, that which helps us activate a deeper felt resonance, remembrance of what's held in our own bone memory. We've leaned into these colonized mindsets in these original ways, how the colonized mind continually disconnects us and disempowers us, traps us. Spells are being cast. And these original ways that break spells and restore a more original kind of relationship and approach with being in the world and with the sacred. Now, the challenge is, this is the challenge. The challenge is that as a people, we've been so unknowingly conditioned that because we're always looking at our own eyes, we don't see the conditioning that we are. We don't see how we are blocking ourselves from these depths. And this is that colonization. It's like when you are spinning round and round and round, and then you stop, but the world keeps spinning. We had built a kind of momentum in a conditioned psychology that is preventing us, that which is wanting to probe us in to the deeper meanings of our life. And so to help others break spells, to break these enchantments and come close in, we're doing a 4-part introductory series called Going Beyond Shamanism. And it's designed to offer these more practical mindsets. What is the sacred etiquette of greeting the otherness? Where are we unconsciously being blocked or blocking ourselves? How do we come into a more authentic depth and layer that's wanting to speak with us? It isn't, again, about learning information, but rather going on a journey through 4 kind of council fires like this, where we come into a deeper way. That resonates, I would like to invite you to be a part of these circles where we pull our learnings and our experiences together and we share, and we learn and we heal and we grow. I will send out information on how to join us. And I hope you do. I hope you do. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at learning@treeoftotems.com. And I look forward to being of service to you. Thank you for spending this time with me.